and working to safeguard our communities. As you know, Madam Secretary, the ultimate goal of immigration enforcement life cycle is to remove individuals that are here unlawfully, and I commend your department in the pursuit and the end of that goal. One of the results of our open border policies supported by the previous administration was significant growth in ICE's non-detained docket, growing from 3.7 million at the end of FY 2021 to 7.6 million at the end of 2024. That is a 105% increase. Many will commit crimes while here, waiting their turn to be processed, which is unacceptable and why I fought so hard for the Laken Riley Act to pass Congress. And that is also why I was proud to be there when President Trump signed that into law. I am incredibly proud when you look at the work that Alabama does to support the Department of Homeland Security and the equities there and so many hardworking, dedicated public servants who show up every single day to fulfill that mission. From the incredible collaboration between DHS and our college programs on research, to the HIS National Academy in Huntsville, to the Coast Guard's Aviation Training Center in Mobile. It's gratifying to see that I represent a state that plays such an important role in protecting our country. Alabama is also home to some key institutions that fit within the administration's priorities of empowering state and local law enforcement to have a seat at the table when it comes to disaster recovery and national security. Both FEMA's Center for Domestic Preparedness and the National Computer Forensic Institute in Hoover provide key resources to local officials across our nation to ensure that they are equipped with the best knowledge, skills, and tools needed to protect and serve the United States of America. It is unfortunate that trainings have been canceled, especially at a time when cities across this country begin to prepare for the World Cup and the Olympics. Madam Secretary, I am certainly open to conversations about how all of this evolves, but I want to make sure that we are looking at future threats as well as existing threats, and I believe that we can do both. Another FEMA area that not only saves taxpayer dollars but saves taxpayer lives is the BRIC program. Since President Trump signed the Disaster Recovery Reform Act, which authorizes BRIC, nearly $5 billion has gone to mitigation projects across 55 states and territories and 37 tribal nations that requested funding. This is clearly a popular and important program. The program obviously is not without its challenges. Applying and implementing BRIC grants requires resources to many cities, states, and tribes that they may not have. But rather than ceasing to implement it, we should work together to identify ways that BRIC could be amended to be less complex and more efficient. Madam Secretary, the people up here look forward to working with you and your team. We look forward to conversations about the President's FY26 budget for DHS. From what I've seen, I am personally supportive of zeroing out the Shelter and Services Program, and I look forward to conversations about FEMA, CISA, and TSA. I hope that we will see requests for base increases to CBP, ICE, and elsewhere within DHS. You have an incredibly difficult job, Madam Secretary, and have stepped up to do it during one of the most challenging times. I want to thank you for your service, and I look forward to your testimony today and to working with you and your team to making sure that America's borders are safe and its people are secure. I now turn to Senator Murphy and recognize him for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Secretary, thank you for being here. I'm sorry that I missed your call yesterday. I look forward to working closely with you. I say this with seriousness and respect, but your department is out of control. You are spending like you don't have a budget. You're on the verge of running out of money for the fiscal year. You are illegally refusing to spend funds that have been authorized by this Congress and appropriated by this committee. You are ignoring the immigration laws of this nation, implementing a brand new immigration system that you have invented that has little relation to the statutes that you are required, that you are commanded to follow, as spelled out in your oath of office. You are routinely violating the rights of immigrants who may not be citizens, but whether you like it or not, they have constitutional and statutory rights when they reside in the United States. Your agency acts as if laws don't matter, as if the election gave you some mandate to violate the Constitution and the laws passed by this Congress. It did not give you that mandate. You act as if your disagreement with the law, or even the public's disagreement with the law, is relevant and gives you the ability to create your own law. It does not give you that ability. Let's start with your spending. You are on track to trigger the Anti-Deficiency Act. That means you are going to spend more money than you have been allocated by Congress. This is a rare occurrence, and it is wildly illegal. Your agency will be broke by July, over 2 months before the end of the fiscal year. You may not think that Congress has provided enough money to ICE, but the Constitution and the federal law does not allow you to spend more money than you have been given or to invent money. And this obsession with spending at the border, as the chairwoman mentioned, has left the country unprotected elsewhere. The security threats to the United States are higher, not lower, than before Trump came to office. To fund the border, you have illegally gutted spending for cybersecurity. As we speak, Russian and Chinese hackers are having a field day attacking our nation. You've withdrawn funds for disaster prevention. Storms are going to kill more people in this country because of your illegal withholding of these funds. Your myopia about the border, fueled by President Trump's prejudice against people who speak a different language, has shattered many of this country's most important defenses. Now let's talk about the impoundments. When Congress appropriates funds for a specific purpose, the administration has no discretion as to whether to spend or not spend that money unless you go through a very specific process with this committee. Let me give you two of many instances of this illegal impoundment. The first is the Shelter and Services Program. Senator Britt may want to zero that account out, but that account is funded, and it was funded in a bipartisan way. You don't like the program. Your policy is to treat migrants badly. I think that's abhorrent, but it doesn't matter that you don't like the program. You cannot cancel spending in this program, and you cannot use the funds as you have to fund other things like ICE. You have also canceled citizenship and integration grants, which help lawful permanent residents become citizens, helping them take the citizenship test. I know your goal is to try to make life as hard as possible for immigrants, but that goal is not broadly shared by the American public. That's why Congress, in a bipartisan way, for decades, has funded this program to help immigrants in this country become citizens. Now let's talk about why encounters at the southern border are down so much. This is clearly going to be your primary talking point today. You will tell us that it represents a success. But the primary reason why encounters are down is because you are brazenly violating the law every hour of every day. You are refusing to allow people showing up at the southern border to apply for asylum. I acknowledge that you don't believe that people should be able to apply for asylum, but you don't get to choose that. The White House doesn't get to choose that. The law requires you to process people who are showing up at the border and who claim asylum. Why? Because our asylum law is a bipartisan commitment, an effort to correct for our nation's unconscionable decision to deny entry to Jews to this country who were being hunted and killed by the Nazis. Our nation, Republicans and Democrats, wrote it into law that we would not repeat that horror ever again, and thus we would allow for people who were fleeing terror and torture to come here, arrive at the border, and make a case for asylum. Finally, let's talk about these disappearances. In an autocratic society, people who the regime does not like are people who are protesting the regime. They are just often picked up off the street, spirited away, sometimes to open-ended detention, sometimes they're never seen again. What you are doing, both the individuals who have legal rights to stay here, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, or students who are just protesting Trump's policies, is immoral. And to follow the theme, it is illegal. You have no right to deport a student visa holder with no due process simply because they have spoken in a way that offends the president. You can't remove migrants who a court has given humanitarian protection from removal. Now, reports suggest that you are planning to remove immigrants with no due process and send them to prisons in Libya. Libya is in the middle of a civil war. It is subject to a level 4 travel advisory, meaning we tell American citizens never to travel to Libya. We don't have an embassy there because it is not safe for our diplomats. Sending migrants with pending asylum claims into a war zone just because it's cruel is so deeply disturbing. Listen, I understand that my Republican colleagues on this committee don't view the policy the way that I do. My Republican colleagues don't share my level of concern for the way that this administration treats immigrants. That's fine. But what I don't understand is why we don't have consensus in the Senate and on this committee on the decision by this administration to impound the spending that we have decided together to allocate in defense of this nation. We as an appropriations committee, we work interminable hours to write and pass a budget This budget is really hard to write and pass. And so we make ourselves irrelevant when we allow the administration to ignore what we have decided. And then when we look the other way, when the administration rounds up immigrants who are here illegally and have committed no offenses worthy of detainment, we also do potential irreversible damage to the Constitution. These should not be partisan concerns, destroying the power of Congress, eroding individuals' constitutional rights. This should matter to both parties. Madam Secretary, thank you for being here, and I look forward to your testimony.
Madam Secretary, let me first explain that Chair Britt is trying to cover two different subcommittees. She will be returning, but in the meantime has asked that I take the gavel. And fortunately, that means that I get to welcome you, but also ask the first questions. But first, we want to hear your statement. So please proceed.
Yes. Well, thank you, Senator Collins. And I do want to thank Senator Britt as well for bringing this group of individuals together for this committee hearing so that we could talk about the priorities of the United States of America and what we can do to work together to secure our homeland. I do want to thank Senator Murphy as well and look forward to our conversations that we can have today and far into the future. In the first 100 days, the Trump administration has already delivered for the American people a drastic turnaround in homeland security, from the southern border to investing in our Coast Guard to cybersecurity, and we are just getting started. I'm very proud of the accomplishments that we have made so far and working with President Trump and his leadership since he took office. At the southern border, we have obtained near total control with a 95% decrease in daily encounters since President Trump took office. March saw the lowest number of encounters in this nation's history at less than 7,200. There were days in there where we had less than 200 encounters a day, which is absolutely remarkable. And again, that is the lowest number of encounters at the border in this nation's history. Under the previous administration, when Joe Biden was the president of the United States, U.S. Customs and Border Protection was at times encountering over 15,000 people per day. This astonishing turnaround is a testament to the resolve and to the leadership of President Trump to make America safe, and to the incredible work of the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security. The secure border has allowed Border Patrol to zero in on the cartels and on illicit activities that are going on. President Trump has designated 6 different cartels and violent criminal gangs as foreign terrorist organizations. This has allowed us to use a whole-of-government approach in how we go after drug traffickers and human traffickers. And in March, fentanyl traffic at the border fell by 54% compared to the previous year. We're enforcing immigration laws to identify, arrest, detain, and remove dangerous illegals from our country. We're prioritizing those who have committed crimes, aliens who are a threat to our public safety and to our national security, especially those who are affiliated with terrorist organizations such as Tren de Aragua and MS-13. This includes those who also have final orders of removal. We've worked to enforce President Trump's America First trade agenda through the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's enforcement. The Biden administration's policies hollowed out our economy and America's industrial base, and it shipped our jobs overseas. President Trump is changing that. His historic actions are proving that tariffs are an effective negotiating tool to address trade imbalances. And in fact, companies are reshoring jobs here every single day. The Department of Homeland Security is reforming, and we're rethinking federal involvement in emergency management. President Trump recently announced that there will be a FEMA Review Council, which I will co-chair with the Department of Defense Secretary. This council is charged with fixing a broken system that's returning power to state emergency management directors and making America safe. We're also taking steps to defend the nation's transportation systems, which are vulnerable to targets and to attacks. The Transportation Security Administration is responsible for ensuring the security of all those who travel. In a single day, there are over 45,000 flights in this country with nearly 2.9 million passengers in the United States. We're fulfilling our obligation to launch Real ID, which happened yesterday, and we follow federal law as it was passed 20 years ago. Validated IDs will secure travel, safeguard our elections, and make sure that we never open a door to an opportunity for another tragedy like 9/11 again. As technology advances, so do the threats to our nation. And that's why cybersecurity is a crucial component of our security measures we're taking seriously and investing in going forward. Countries like Communist China have built the capability and the intent to infiltrate and potentially disrupt our critical infrastructure. But despite these threats, the Biden administration instead used CISA to play politics and to police speech. Under President Trump, we've been working to get CISA back on mission and make sure that they are securing our infrastructure. The Coast Guard is the only branch of the U.S. Armed Services that are under the Department of Homeland Security. It has many missions with specialized needs. And as we secure the southern border, the cartels have shifted their activities out to the maritime borders. The Coast Guard has already surpassed fiscal year 2024 drug interdiction numbers and search and rescue and illegal interdictions. Still, the Coast Guard is facing our greatest readiness challenge since World War II. With Force Design 2028, we will transform the Coast Guard to make it a more agile, capable, and responsive force. And since I took office, one of the responsibilities that I have is reforming the Secret Service. In the wake of the July 13th assassination attempt, we have needs there that I'm hoping you will consider. We've reassessed the Secret Service's needs. We've refocused recruitment away from DEI objectives and instead focused people in on investing in the agency's zero-fail mission. These accomplishments are just a portion of what the Department of Homeland Security has achieved with President Trump's leadership in the last 100 days. And with the support of this committee, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make this department more efficient and more effective in securing our nation. I'm so grateful to the men and women of the department, and they are examples of bravery, patriotism, and dedication. It's our responsibility to continue providing them with resources, training, and equipment that they need to do their jobs. Thank you so much for your support, for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. I'd like to first recognize Chair Collins for her round of questioning.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Secretary, I want to bring to your attention an important issue that may not yet be one that you've been briefed on. In August of 2023, DHS issued a memo in which the department stated that it had identified more than 270 Chinese-backed illegal marijuana operations in the state of Maine alone, producing up to an estimated $4.3 billion in illicit revenue. These grow houses are primarily run by Chinese organized crime syndicates with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Our sheriffs and local law enforcement have worked night and day to shut down these grow houses that tend to be located in very rural areas of the state. I hope that the president's more detailed budget request includes funding that can be used to help supplement the county, state, and local law enforcement efforts. DEA has also been involved. IRS has been involved. The FBI is starting to get involved, but DHS obviously has an important role to play. So I hope you will commit today to joining this all-of-government effort to shut down these dangerous illegal grow houses. Undoubtedly, there's human trafficking going on as well. The marijuana is destroying these houses with black mold because it's grown inside to try to hide what is going on, and it's being smuggled to other states. This isn't just a problem in Maine. Some 22 states have similarly found these illegal grow operations with ties to transnational criminal organizations in China.
Well, thank you, Senator Collins. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention and this important discussion. Obviously, we're very concerned with securing our border and knowing who's coming into our country illegally, but also who's already here. And so you pointing out the fact that we have investments in this country, businesses, and marijuana grow houses that have a presence of ties to the PRC is incredibly alarming. So I agree that we should work together to see what we can do. As you know, the Department of Homeland Security, our mission is to secure the homeland. I tell people quite often that my responsibility lies with everyone who's in this country, comes into this country or leaves, every product that's here that leaves or comes in, and then everything on the internet as well that's communicated or processed. This is alarming that we have China. Not only are they stealing our IP, manipulating their currency, but they're building a presence in this country as well. And so everything that we can do to make sure that we're addressing that and not allowing them to get a foothold